for coming out. Before we kick off on our discussion of drones, maybe starting with Romeo, you might just expand on your experience, where you've come from, and how you're involved with this fantastic technology.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everyone for being here. My background is in space science. I actually spent almost 13 years working on a space mission, and I got involved in the technology very early on when these drones were not as capable as they are today. And I was very fascinated by the capabilities of these machines. And so I actually gotten into it doing aerial photography. And to me, that was just one of the most beautiful things. And what I realized was that education is a key component in making this technology not only successful, but safely getting it integrated into the airspace.
I find that really interesting because the company that Romeo represents, DJI, are one of the largest drone manufacturers in the world. And to have a department that's looking at education, and I'm coming from an education background, it's really inspiring that your company is doing that. It's also worth mentioning that you're a very accomplished photographer, and Romeo is going to be speaking later on at 1:15, so I encourage everybody to attend that talk as well and see some of the fantastic images that he's recorded. Jono.
So I actually started from the hobbyist perspective, just playing with robots because they're fun to play with. But my background is actually in machine learning. And what's really exciting to me about this is that the third dimension has always been inaccessible to people. And now we have this technology which can give us this aerial perspective, and it's this giant flatbed scanner for the Earth. We can suddenly digitize the world around us. And that's pretty much what we're excited about at Drone Deploy, is making these robots fly around, capture data, and then start processing that data so that we can better monitor, measure, and manage the world around us.
Interesting. Agris.
Yeah, for us, it's really a combination of two, drones and adventure sports. So we are really excited about that idea of you being able to capture yourself in action, be it an awesome wave you were able to get on, or your first 360 you landed on skis. So those are the type of moments in life we allow to be captured, shared, and relived later.
And it's really very interesting. We've got a great panel today because although they're all leading minds in the drone industry, each of the guys are coming from a different perspective, with Romeo being the director of education at one of the largest companies your market is, you're trying to reach so many different people that have so many functions. Agris, your company is quite specific in that you're targeting adventure sports, and it's at the minute it's one aircraft, and I'm sure you have plans for the future. And Jono, then you're looking at a downstream application where you are using software that facilitates the drone user in a very, very specific function. I suppose to give my background on all of this, I'm a military flight instructor by profession. Aside from that, I have a massive interest in unmanned aviation, and I'm the Chief Ground Instructor of iFly Technology, as was mentioned. And we have a commitment to promoting safety and trying to provide the best education in drones, because in my mind, this technology is advancing really, really quickly. And traditional regulation it's difficult to apply it to this new technology. What are your opinions on where we've come, say, even in just the last 5 years? And maybe you might enlighten our audience, because a lot of people here, out of interest, can I get a show of hands of who owns the drone? Photography drone, okay, some hands. And out of everyone in the audience, who has seen a drone in operation? Okay, so yeah, really, really quite a large number of people. 5 years ago, hands up who had seen a drone in operation. Okay. Romeo, you might kick us off.
Well, I'm actually more curious, who is skeptical about drones? Please raise your hands. All right, there are a couple. Good. Every time new technology gets introduced, there are challenges. And we're seeing these challenges today. And some of them we're concerned about privacy, we're concerned about things that fly above our heads, we're concerned about accidents. And those are valid concerns, and we as a society have to think those concerns through, and that's where education comes back in. And I'm really, really glad to see that not only this panel, but a lot of people out there are really good ambassadors. They help with enforcing smart use of the technology. And so 5 years ago, barely anyone thought that drones could be used for the things we're using them today. And today, we are not even aware of applications that we will be doing with these machines next year or in 2 or 3 years. So that's the exciting part.
And our Back to the Future event happened just 2 weeks ago, and they didn't envisage we'd have drones, although we've missed out on the hoverboard. Jono, where do you think we'll be in the coming years?
It's really interesting. This technology has moved so incredibly quickly. If you think that the DJI Phantom, that quintessential white drone that you see flying all over the place, that didn't exist in the end of 2012. That was like an early 2013 thing. So it's only really been about 2.5 years since we've seen drones in this kind of more mainstream environment. To think what's going to happen in the next 5 years is very difficult. Just seeing the rate at which this technology is changing. For us, the hope is that businesses will understand that this can provide so much more rich information about workflows, supply chain management, safety. So my vision is that we're going to start seeing this transition from being the very consumer-focused thing to leaching into industry and really seeing this changing the way people operate their businesses.
Mm-hmm. Agris, how did you come up with the idea for Airdog? Where does that come from? Because I have dabbled in adventure sports, although I usually end up in a crash. But
yeah, we pretty much all do in our team. So I think that the idea came very naturally. We were into drone technology initially with a bit of a different focus, but we were also in adventure sports, so we were struggling a bit with that third-person view type of a shot. We were going out there with sticks and poles and stuff like that, and it was just natural that this idea popped up, and we started working on it. So for us, it's really it is about being able to capture yourself in action, but eventually we are very excited about the entire workflow you as a user go through before you get something meaningful to be shared. So it's from capturing to editing, organizing your data, and sharing it. So that's where we see our technology developing, particularly in adventure sports.
Yeah, could you give us a quick 30-second rundown on how your product actually works out in the field, just for people who haven't seen it?
So it's we do it a bit probably differently. So what do you do as a user? You are actually selecting a sport you are at, because we see sports being very different. We are after great footage, so we want to make sure that you are capturing great footage while keeping it safe. So we think it's very important to take into consideration those different motion patterns, different environments you actually do sports in. And we build our software around that understanding and let users actually do as little as select a sport they are in.
So you select a sport. Am I right in saying you wear a leash? And
right, exactly.
And you launch the drone, and it follows you.
Exactly. There's that tracking device on your wrist. That is how we sense your motion.
Yeah, really, really exciting product. I know it's going to be on my Christmas list, and I believe you're shipping early next year.
Yeah, so first units will go to our Kickstarter backers. Those guys have been enormously supportive, instrumental for us as a company. So we need to make sure they are the ones getting first ones.
Yeah, excellent. I think as a panel we agree that drones are a part of our future, and I think that for anyone to suggest otherwise would be in some ways naive. What do you see as the challenges that face both industry and the public for the future of drone technology?
I think from my perspective, it's public perception. Over the last 2 years, we've gotten used to the term drone, but yet there is still kind of like a bad feeling with it. Yet we have so many wonderful success stories out there of drones being used and really making an impact on everyday life or the environment. And so we should focus more on these applications and introduce them more so we can change public perception. The things that Drone Deploy is doing with our platforms and other platforms and the data that they're gathering is so extremely helpful. And if we can realize that the potential out of this and the savings of cost and the savings of life, that by itself should help change that public perception that we all have as one of our obstacles. And then, of course, the regulatory environment. But every time, if we look back in history, a new technology gets introduced, we go through that cycle, and we ultimately come to a point where we can say, wow, I am behind this technology.
A friend of mine recently commented, and it was a very astute observation. Anyone who's seen Jurassic Park, you'll remember the moment where Dr. Richard Hammond first shows dinosaurs that they've recreated, and Jeff Goldblum's character says, everybody's asking what we can do, and nobody's asking what we should do. I thought it's really appropriate for drones as well, because everybody's excited about, we can put drones up, we can do so many amazing things, but there is an appropriate way to do it, and a lot of people are spending time and putting effort into doing it right. But it's a very good observation what you've made, in that from my mind in aviation, it's all about risk, and you have to assess the risk of introducing this new product. But actually, if you twist it, we can look at the removal of risk, because now you don't have to send somebody up the ladder. Now somebody doesn't have to climb the wind turbine. Now you can send the drone, and yes, you've put a craft in the air that has its own associated risks, but you've also removed a significant risk to life, which is great. What about from your perspective, guys, in terms of challenges in the future?
I kind of really agree with Romeo. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think the way we mitigate this is just by telling the right stories. It's very difficult to argue with, let's help farmers farm more efficiently and feed us all better. It's very difficult to say, let's make mines safer. And I think those are the kinds of stories we need to tell more.
And maybe just expand a little bit more, Jono, on so if there was an operator in Ireland or in any country, and they wanted to use your software, what does your software offer? What does it do?
Sure. So there are two components to what we do. The one is we make the drone fly in the right places and capture the right data. And then the other component is we process that data and help people analyze it to extract value and basically get answers to questions they have around their business. So in the agricultural, I did a talk 2 days ago on that, but we're basically helping the growers find problems in their fields. And this is this early warning detection system. When the corn is 8 foot high and you're sitting on the outside, you really can't see anything. And you can now go down to your field, put your DJI drone on the ground, take the phone you already have in your pocket out, just open up the Drone Deploy app and just say, make a map of my field. And we'll make sure that it takes off, it flies over, it captures the right data, sends it up to our cloud infrastructure for processing. And while you're out there, you can actually start seeing, like, wow, there's a problem over here, and this is different to what it was last week. These things have changed. And really helping people just understand the world around them. This is the first time that we have cheap labor in the sky. It's always been just really difficult to get up there.
It's interesting because we're all using the term drone, and a year ago everybody was trying to move away from drone, and they were saying ORPAS, and it started with UAV, and then UAS, and SUAS. I quite like the term drone, and I'm aware of previous negative connotations, but a drone is what it is. It has some level of autonomous function, and that, from a manned aviation pilot, we are very cautious. Although we embrace, we're very cautious of autonomous function, because autonomous function brings in its own problems. The simplest autonomous function that we're all aware of is an autopilot. And what does an autopilot do? It flies the airplane, but the pilot's already able to fly the airplane. So all the autopilot is doing is, it does a better job than most pilots, but it's still just flying the airplane. And actually what it does is it degrades the pilot's ability to actually take over and fly the airplane, because the pilot hasn't been flying for a very long time. So the irony of automation is, by its existence, if it fails, it's left a bigger problem than if it never existed. Agris, your product is, it's not autonomous in the sense that you can't stay at home and it goes off and does the job. You have to interact with it. But how, as a company, are you dealing with that challenge of creating something that's autonomous but still needs that human interaction?
Well, it's funny. We get this question. It seems as if Airdog is very autonomous, and it's a bit tricky, because actually, what do? You control it with your motion, so you are still in charge.
Yes.
But it's in a very weird way.
Yeah.
Well, we still leave that opportunity for you to jump into in case you need to. We still have that tracking device on your body, and we really make sure that you are able to push a button on it even with your gloves on. But we truly believe in autonomy. We truly believe in autopilot capabilities. We think that that removes a lot of possible user error, and we think that it actually makes the technology much more safer, which is something I think is very important for this industry in general.
Absolutely. I think it's very apt that we're here in Dublin, and it's great to have the Web Summit here. I have strong feelings about the future of drone technology in Ireland. What are your opinions on Ireland and its future in the drone industry?
I think it's a great hub. Not only do you have the infrastructure and the enticement for companies to come to Ireland, but you also have the beautiful land and fairly open skies that can be designated areas for testing, for example. So I think the future looks really great for Ireland, and the people are wonderful, plus you have Guinness.
What about the rain?
Oh, who cares about the rain?
So it's pretty exciting. We already have a bunch of users in Ireland. We've got users in about 60 countries at the moment, and it's fantastic just to see this technology spreading. And we've got this big map in our office of all the dots around the world of all these drones flying. It's really exciting to see it moving.
Do you see any barriers to the use of this technology? Something that could really step in our way, or are we going to be able to come together and make this move forward? Is the regulation going to come from, and I know the regulation will be spoken about later, but how can we as companies and users convince people that drones are good and they're here to stay?
We are our own worst barriers. I think if we start embracing, if we start thinking smartly about the technology, and if we continue to educate, it will happen. Everything will fall in place.
Yeah, and I agree. I think education is certainly part of the future. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here in Ireland. I'd like to thank all the people who've watched today. Make sure you catch Romeo's talk later on. It's been a fantastic Web Summit. I hope to see you all in Lisbon next year. The weather might be slightly different, and anyone who's traveling to the Drones and Data Conference, which is on this weekend, we'll welcome you there for some more talks. Thank you very much.